Ninjago is almost 10 years old, and it's been a long ride since the show first started. Not only has the show grown up, but so has the community and its viewers. This will be the start of a series called Ninjago's 10-Year Journey, which will analyze how the community and show have evolved over the last decade. The first part will focus on Ninjago's predecessors and how the show got its start. In the late 1990s, LEGO released a ninja theme. This was made up of traditional ninja sets, such as boats, samurai, and more. These were based heavily off of feudal Japan, and the theme ran from 1998 to 1999 before it was discontinued. LEGO wouldn't have another ninja theme until over a decade later. It would be called Ninjago. Not too long after the first ninja theme ended, LEGO started what many consider to be Ninjago's real predecessor, Bionicle. The first generation of Bionicle lasted a decade, from 2000 to 2010. Like Ninjago would, it also had accompanying TV media, but for Bionicle, it was movies. The type of storytelling, as well as several actors from the first movie, would transfer over to Ninjago. Although Bionicle was financially successful at first, it was discontinued at the start of the 2010s. Later in the decade, it was rebooted for a brief period. As early as 2009, Ninjago was being developed. Tommy Andreessen and a few others formed the idea of spinjitzu, which still remains a crucial aspect of the show. Several characters and ideas would change over the next year. Jay was initially a video gamer, and Garmadon was called Demic. Kai was planned to be called Ash, but that conflicted with Pokemon. Dan and Kevin Hageman joined the crew to write the pilot episodes, and their drafts would change over time as well. For example, it was initially planned for the ninja to chase Garmadon into the Madness Realm. Around late 2010, the first trailers and promotional material were released for Ninjago. The show would be titled Ninjago Masters of Spinjitzu. The first wave of sets released on January 1st of 2011, and would continue to release over the rest of the year. On January 14th, the pilot episodes were released in the USA, marking the official birthday of the Ninjago TV series. While Ninjago may have been related to the previous theme, it was clear these themes were very different. Ninjago took in traditional aspects like the gi, but mixed it in with plenty of other ideas. It got its identity as being a fusion of the old theme, but also many new influences. Such as technology, these skeletons drove trucks, and many more vehicles came in later waves. Ninjago also took in Asian influence, introducing the dragons, which are still a major aspect of the series. And in so many ways, the pilot set the precedence for what the series continues to be today. It established Ninjago should be a blend of technology, traditional, and fantasy influences. For the story, it left a cliffhanger by featuring Garmadon's escape from the underworld. As with any pilots, they were designed to both set up the story but also get the viewer's interest. Ninjago had officially kicked off, and this was only the beginning. Ninjago had finally started, and the best was yet to come. From late 2011 to 2012, the first two seasons of the series released. Being the first seasons of so many, a strong sense of nostalgia still surrounds them. Part 2 will focus on Ninjago's original run, and why this era of the series is so iconic. Ninjago's very first installment had released earlier in 2011, and towards the end of the same year, Season 1 started. The first two episodes of Rise of the Snakes released in the US in November. The sets also started to release around then as well, and the season only finished airing in April of 2012. The finale episode actually had over 3 billion viewers tuning in. Like the pilots, this season set many precedents, and created so many key aspects about the show. Most notably of these aspects was the Serpentine, who have been involved in almost every Ninjago season in some way. This race of human-like snakes is such a staple of the series, and has had a huge impact on the show. Season 1 also expanded the idea of powers with the true potentials. There was also the introduction of the bounties, Samurai X, and of course the Green Ninja story. There was so much speculation and hype about this character, who ultimately ended up being Lloyd. Season 1 was very successful, and the first trailer for Season 2 released in the summer. Season 2 was an interesting season to say the least. This season's first half was made up mainly of filler episodes. This was done to fill up time before the next wave of sets came in the winter. As a result, these weren't received very well, as they were very random and didn't do too much with the actual plot. They still are considered to be some of the show's worst episodes ever. Fortunately, the second half was received far better. This story was actually connected to the sets and wasn't just random episodes. Stuff like the final battle at Temple of Light were praised, and are some of the most iconic scenes of the series. Ninjago definitely went out with a success, and similar to Season 1's finale, the final episode received over 3 billion viewers. These sets started to come in late 2012 and early 2013. Revisiting the original question, why are these seasons looked upon so fondly? One of the easiest answers is nostalgia, and these came out 9 years ago. These were simpler times for many fans whose lives have really changed since then. People also loved the characters. The 4 that 5 Ninja made a great impression on the viewers. Especially in these 2 seasons, they were extremely relatable, such as Cole's story with his father. But there was also a sense of hype that surrounded the show that just isn't really around anymore. Many more people watched it back then. LEGO magazines advertised the show, and there was also a consistent release schedule. These elements aren't as present or just aren't present at all nowadays. But that was, or at least it was supposed to be, the end of Ninjago. Immediately after episode 26, a promotion was shown for Ninjago's successor, The Legends of Chima. It was made by the same crew, with Tommy Andresen at the helm, and scheduled to release in 2013. With Ninjago seemingly over, this began an entire year without the show. But as fans would soon discover, Ninjago wasn't over. Because of how popular the show was, LEGO decided to renew Ninjago for a 3rd season. For the next year, the show entered hiatus. But this wasn't the end of Ninjago's story. In fact, there was so much more to come. Ninjago was over. The show had lasted 2 seasons as intended. Now it was time to move on to the next project. As everyone knows now, Ninjago didn't actually end. But for a few months, that seemed to be the case. And in Ninjago's place came Chima. Legends of Chima is an entirely separate show, but is still important to Ninjago's journey. Of all the thieves that were supposed to replace Ninjago, Chima came the closest by far. It was animated by Willfilm and made by the same creators of Ninjago. It had animal characters who had to preserve the world's balance, as well as crazy concepts mixed in with modern elements. Much about the show was similar to Ninjago, but people didn't like it. Why? There are a variety of reasons. Chima's characters just weren't as likable. The villains didn't have as much depth. This show didn't come anywhere close to the outstanding reception Ninjago had. Chima would continue for 2 more seasons and ended in late 2014. Ironically enough, Ninjago outlived the show that was supposed to replace it. Chima has had a few references and cameos in Ninjago, but besides that, it didn't really have much of a legacy. In fact, Chima was quickly overshadowed when proof of Ninjago's return surfaced. In early 2013, a rebooted poster was leaked featuring Zane's face, and fans were incredibly hyped by this news. While Chima aired throughout the world, fans eagerly waited for season 3. Also around this time, the LEGO Ninjago movie was officially announced, but that'll be discussed more later. But back to season 3, the Cryptor minifigure was leaked as well. And eventually towards the end of the year, the full trailer came out. Rebooted would start to air in 2014, and many fans were happy with what they saw. Seeing the characters back on screen was just great, and people really missed the show. The surge got many excited with a total viewership of over 2 million. The futuristic environment was unlike anything anyone had ever seen from Ninjago. A good Garmadon, the returning Overlord, and Zade focus also energized fans. And then there was the finale. The season 3 finale is still, to this day, one of the most surprising things to come from Ninjago. Zade's death wasn't really foreshadowed, and definitely not something people expected for a LEGO show. In reality, Zane only was dead for a few minutes. But the ninja thought he was gone for good, and so their grief at how they handled this loss was highlighted. It was one of the most mature stories the show has ever done, and really stands out about this season. In the United States, though, fans had a very different experience. The 8 episodes aired over the course of a year, so that was 2 episodes every 3 months. This was the first time Cartoon Network mistreated Ninjago, a trend that still continues. While the rest of the world got the episodes, Americans had to wait months just to see the next 2. The experience wasn't as bad for season 4 and 5, but Cartoon Network's horrendous treatment of Ninjago did not vanish. Regardless of that though, season 3 was a huge success for Ninjago. Views were still strong and hype was back for the show. Chima would continue as well, but it was easily pushed to the side by Rebooted. Ninjago's hiatus was a boring time for many fans, but the show's triumphant return was a testament to how much it was loved. 2015 was another very successful year for the series, with 2 of the best received seasons yet. The success continued into 2016 with Skybound. Part 4 will focus on why the 2 2015 seasons are so significant, as well as how they redefined what Ninjago's all about. It will also cover the first half of 2016. Season 4, Tournament of Elements, aired mainly in the first half of 2015. As opposed to Cartoon Network's disastrous schedule for Rebooted, this one was far better. The first 5 episodes aired weekly until they decided to push out the last 5 daily, and the overall reception of this season was good. It presented a new story, but was definitely influenced by rebooted Zending. This season expanded upon the mature ideas Season 3 established, such as Zayd's PTSD arc and Garmadon's sacrifice. After the past 2 years had either one or no seasons, this year finally brought back the 2 seasons per year trend. Season 5 is, at least in the modern day, perhaps the most liked season ever. For example, the intro is especially beloved for its creative art style. The past 2 seasons were mature, but Season 5 took that a step up, which is something some were critical of at the time. Characters were possessed, some died, and Cole became a ghost. All of this definitely contributed to this darker tone. In a way, Season 5 was also very connected to Season 4, with the continuation of the Cursed Realm story and Garmadon's conclusion. So why are these seasons so vital to the show? These seasons introduce core concepts that are very integral to the show nowadays. In fact, it would be hard to imagine Ninjago without these. In Season 4, it was the Elemental Masters. Fans used to believe the ninja were the only people with powers. This season changed that belief and showed there were many others with powers. The elemental dragons remained a significant ability for some time as well. There was also the Serpentine War history, which came back for Season 7. Arguably, Season 5 did even more for the series, with the introduction of Air Jitsu and the 16 realms. Similar to the dragons, Air Jitsu was in the series until Season 8. It was used as much, if not more sometimes, than Spin Jitsu was. However, it was the realms that really changed things. Ninjago wasn't just a single world, but one of many. This set the stage for adventures in other realms, such as in Season 9 and 11. These 2 seasons showed how much was out there. Elemental Masters, realms, and lots of powers to discover. Moving on to 2016, Skybound was released in Asia in January with weekly episodes. This season isn't as beloved as the other 2, but a lot of people still seem to like it. There were definitely a few areas of criticism, such as the time reversal, prison story, and Nia's behavior at times. However, Nanakon was definitely a success. This season wasn't as influential to the series as the previous 2, but there were still some big events. Most notably was Jay and Nia's relationship basically becoming official. Unfortunately, this year, Cartoon Network's horrible treatment of Ninjago came back. The first episode was released in March, but the other 9 didn't actually continue until June, and this trend would sadly continue. All in all though, 2015 was a very successful year, with 2 seasons that brought key ideas to the show. Skybound was also received well, but later in 2016 things would change for Ninjago, and it would take some time before things got back on track. Ninjago has been through a lot of change, and some of that started back in 2016, which was when the Hagman brothers took a temporary leave from the show to focus on Troll Hunters, making David Shane Ninjago's head writer for the next year. Part 5 will focus on the effect of this change, as well as Day of the Departed and Season 7. In March, a photo surfaced for what seemed to be the Season 7 poster, and it showed Cole fighting off old villains as well as Sensei Yang. Soon after, a second poster showed up that said "Close the Circle," and people were very hyped about this. Some speculated Close the Circle could indicate the end of the series, however most were excited for 2 things: a Cole season and seeing villains who had been gone for years. At the time, this was believed to be Season 7, Rise of the Villains. But 2016's Comic-Con proved this wouldn't be the case. The LEGO Ninjago movie was pushed back a year to 2017, and Season 7 was cut to a Halloween special to fill up the year's second half. Some elements of Rise of the Villains are still in the sets, such as the Nelson minifigure, but anyways, the Day of the Departed opening scene was revealed and the real Season 7, Hands of Time, was confirmed at Comic-Con. People were still really hyped, however, and in October the special was released. Unfortunately, all that hype turned to disappointment. The special was very rushed, cramming the return of 7 villains into basically 2 episodes. Cole was cheated out of a season, and Yang, who was liked in Season 5, became a generic villain. These are just a few of the many complaints people had. This special isn't as hated now, but it's still one of the most disliked installments. There were several reasons why it failed. The format was one, but there was also the writing. Although would it really be fair to judge Shade for a special that was doomed to fail, Season 7 would hopefully be better. In March of 2017, Hands of Time started to air in Canada, and not long after in May it arrived in the USA. Unfortunately, the reception for this season wasn't great. The animation was noticeably different than past seasons, but there was a slew of other issues as well. The writing was different, and that makes sense given the change in writers. The season seemed more childish in a way, and the villains weren't the strongest. At the time, this might have been the show's most disliked season. However, it left off with a cliffhanger with Wu lost in time, and most expected Season 8 would continue the story, although in the end it didn't. But the summer of 2017 was a very interesting period, as it started the transition to the new Ninjago that came the following year. To start with, there was the recasting of Lloyd with Samuel Vincent, and there was also that year's very controversial Comic-Con, which will be discussed in the next part. But most importantly was the build-up to the LEGO Ninjago movie, with new trailers being released and more marketing. 2017 and Season 7 closed off Ninjago's first phase. The next year had the redesigns, while 2019 had a brand new series. And this first phase ended in a very odd way, to say the least. It ended with two of the show's most disliked installments, but it was ultimately 2017's second half and the movie that would prove to have the greatest impact. The LEGO Ninjago movie is perhaps Ninjago's greatest achievement, and also its biggest missed opportunity. The movie was released in September of 2017, stirring up a lot of debate over fans whose opinions differed. Part 6 will focus entirely on the movie, but also its strong impact on the series going forward. As mentioned earlier in the series, the movie first was announced back in 2013, but it would be a while until more news came. With the exception of the Higman brothers who wrote the movie, the crew was all new to Ninjago and hadn't been involved with the TV show. The original release date was September of 2016, but the movie was postponed a year, and this is likely why Day of the Departed was shortened as discussed in Part 5. Additionally, the voice cast was announced in 2016, and promotional material also started to be released. However, the main trailers didn't come until 2017, one released in the spring while a second one was published at Comic-Con. And generally, people were excited. This was a remarkable achievement. Ninjago was going to the big screen. The movie also featured a huge wave of sets, as well as Ninjago's biggest set at the time, Ninjago City. Also, new designs for the ninja with custom hair pieces. The movie officially was released in September of 2017. Financially, this was the worst performing of the 4 LEGO movies, with a net profit of around $50 million. And critically, it was met with a very mixed reception. Sites such as Rotten Tomatoes placed it around 50%, and it was a very similar case with other review sites. This movie wasn't despised, but definitely not loved either. Many felt that this wasn't similar enough to the show, and others weren't happy with the Lloyd focus. Also, the jokes fell flat. All in all, the charm of previous LEGO movies was going away, and this led to a split reaction in the community too. Some defended the movie while others attacked it and refused to recognize it as Ninjago. There was a lot of controversy about the movie following its release, and to this day the reception is still very divided. Whether it was good or not is subjective, but the one thing nobody can deny is that it was a massive achievement. In fact, this impact was recognized even before the movie was released. At the 2017 Comic-Con, LEGO released the teaser for Season 8. There was one change that everyone noticed. The designs for the ninja would change in the show to match their movie versions. Of course, controversy followed, with many expressing their disapproval of the change. Many even derided Season 8 as fake Ninjago, and fans weren't afraid to voice their criticism. In the aftermath of Comic-Con, Tommy Andreessen and the crew had to make it clear this was still the same Ninjago, but their efforts didn't end the skepticism. The immense impact the movie would have on the show was only starting to become clear. Moving forward, all eyes were on Season 8 to see how it would turn out. Following the LEGO Ninjago movie, a new era of Ninjago started. It only lasted for a little over a year, but brought 2 of the show's most beloved seasons and one of its most disliked. Seasons 8, 9, and 10 make up a 3-season storyline unofficially known as the Oni Trilogy. In January of 2018, Season 8, Sons of Garmadon started airing. This was the first season to air after the movie, but also with the new designs. Although the movie was more childish, Season 8 established a darker and more mature tone, and the animation also was improved. Generally, most people liked the season, and is praised heavily for its change in tone. It challenged many expectations about what Ninjago usually is. It's still the only season where the villains won. The main antagonist, Ruby, was beloved for the mature storytelling surrounding her. Of course, the movie was a big influence. It prompted the return of Garmadon in the series, which was a very emotional event. However, this season also showed fans that their concerns and irrational outrage were for no reason. Despite the change in designs, this was still the same Ninjago. And moving ahead, the designs weren't as big of an issue. The major lesson here was that fans should trust the creators instead of unfairly judging. Season 9 arrived in the summer, resuming right where Season 8 left off. Like Season 8, it brought many new ideas, featuring a 2-realm story where the villains had already won. It also focused heavily on dragons as well as Wu, and it continued the dark tone, with numerous characters dying. This was another season praised heavily by fans, and it was also another accomplishment for post-movie Ninjago. Season 9 ended off ominously, implying the return of the Odi, but also hyping up fans. After all, it was the first time in years the show was doing a multi-season story. Throughout the rest of the year, fans waited eagerly for Season 10. But then, in December of 2018, it was announced that the Hageman brothers, Ninjago's writers, would be leaving the show. This announcement came as a surprise, and fans thanked the brothers for their work over the years, and for writing stories that will be remembered for ages to come. They announced that Bragi Schutt, who had helped with seasons 8 and 9, would succeed them as the head writer. Unfortunately, he did not get a great start. Season 10 was confirmed as the shortest Ninjago season ever at 2018's Comic-Con, and the season was released in early 2019. Because of its short length, it was criticized heavily for its rushed plot, and many felt it was a disappointing conclusion to the trilogy. Stories such as Jay and Nia's were overhyped and ended up being minor. But to be fair, not everything about this season is hated. For example, most people seem to have liked Garbodon, but as a whole and in general, March of the Odi was definitely disliked. Season 10 really capitalized on nostalgia with the Tornado of Creation and Golden Weapons. This was because of 10 seasons, but also for another reason. Unbeknownst to fans, Ninjago was about to enter yet another phase. Masters of Spinjitzu was about to come to a close. After Season 10, a new era of Ninjago kicked off. Or to be more specific, a new series started. The final part of Ninjago's 10-year journey will focus on the present and what the show looks like today. In May of 2019, a Ninjago trailer was released on a network called Teletoon. This trailer had incomplete animation and was very childish. However, the ninja were wearing the newly revealed Season 11 suits. Fans had no idea what was happening, so both confusion and controversy spread. At first, many felt this was just a mini-series, while others correctly guessed it was a revamp of the series. But yet again, the community descended into chaos as fans argued over what was going on. Tommy Andresen tried to explain, but of course, there was still a lot of debate. A few weeks later, LEGO officially confirmed this was the start of a new series that was less serious. The biggest change was the switch to 11-minute episodes to encourage creativity, but also a new animation studio known as WildBrain. The new season was, and still is, called Season 11 by fans, even though it isn't the official term. Season 11 is the show's longest season, and it was divided into 2 chapters, Fire and Ice. It aired for a very long time, from June to October, and it was very disliked. The biggest complaints were the frequent use of filler and the rushed main story. Others felt the characters were dumbed down. Season 11 also featured the show's first anime-inspired episode, which drew criticism. Fans were not happy, as Season 11 is undeniably the show's most hated season. For 2020, the biggest hope for most fans was that the next season simply wouldn't be Season 11. For most, this wish was granted. Season 12 was liked by fans, mostly because it was different than Season 11. It featured an exciting video game world that focused on Jay. However, Season 13 was an even greater success. To start with, it was the very first Cole season, but it also had a complex backstory with Cole's mother, which was a topic fans had wanted to learn more about for years. This season was praised by many. After the 2 controversial 2019 seasons, 2020 marked a return to normalcy for the show. And despite a year that definitely was not normal, the uncertainty and change Ninjago had been through were finally going away. Heading into 2021, fans eagerly waited for Season 14, but also the show's 10th anniversary. Then, all of a sudden, a tragedy occurred. On November 18th, 2020, the voice actor of Cole, Kirby Morrow, passed away. The immediate response was an outpouring of love and support from fans to honor Morrow. It was a time of both sadness and unity, as tragedies often are. Luckily, Morrow was able to record his lines for 2021, so fans will get to enjoy his last performance. It remains unclear what the long-term impact of this event will be, and the future of Cole as a character. However, what is clear is that Ninjago will never be the same without Morrow and his talent. Here's where things stand now. Season 14 is on the way and is going to take place on an island. Another big aspect of modern Ninjago is Legacy. Legacy was made in 2019 as a sub-theme that remade old sets. This year, Ninjago's largest set ever and a special Legacy wave have been made to celebrate the anniversary. Things are looking bright for Ninjago's future, and that is Ninjago's 10-year journey, the story of a show that defied all expectations and connected to thousands with its beautiful stories. Ninjago has impacted us all in numerous ways, and it's all because of the incredible talent of its crew. That is the reason why the show is so successful and why it still lives today. Thank you so much for watching this series. I really hope you enjoyed it. And congratulations to Ninjago on this phenomenal achievement.